Hi, welcome to Beef Cattle Institute's Ask the Experts, where our experts will answer your question. We're happy to have you joining us today and happy to have two great experts with me, Dr. Bob Larson
Hey, Brad. Hey, Philip.
and Dr. Philip Lancaster.
Hey, Brad and Bob.
Great to have you listening with us today. And if you want your question answered, you can always send us an email at bci@ksu.edu, and we'll find the right experts to answer that question. Our format is each expert gets to provide a little bit of an answer to the question, and they get up to 10 points as we go back and forth debating the topic. Today's topic is one that's not a favorite at this time of year, mud. And the specific question is, if I'm managing cows and I've got them in a relatively confined area or a small trap and it starts to get muddy, should I keep them in that area or should I turn them out into future grazing grounds before they're ready to start being grazed? Philip, I'm going to go to you first.
Well, I think you've got to keep them confined to some degree. Maybe it's a little bit larger trap, or find some ways to manage the mud, because turning them out on your grazing pasture, or even leaving them on the hay field, so you've got them on the hay field or whatever, you're feeding hay back on the hay field. If it starts to get muddy and you're getting a lot of hoof traffic and trampling, you're going to have killed out spots that are going to be all weeds, and the forage production is going to be diminished, and so you're killing part of your grazing area.
Okay, so 5 points for Philip to start out with, saying avoid killing that grazing area. Bob?
Yeah, and I think like everybody, I really do hate mud, but I like rain, and so those are not always compatible. And so similarly, I really don't like mud, and so I like to get them out of the lot. But I do agree with Philip. I don't really want to be killing grass. So I'll go back to, if I'm for, I'd honestly, I hate mud so much, I'd like to turn them out, and then Philip has to fix my problem later with me tearing up the grass. But if I have to keep them confined, several things. First of all, plan ahead. Good design, scraping, so my tools are a box scraper, strategic use of gravel and possibly concrete. And just every time I have mud, figure out a way to make it less bad next year.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up on that, and six points for Bob. Now, Philip, I'm going to ask you. You said keep them confined. What are the impacts on the nutritional requirements of those cows?
So if we're dealing with a lot of mud, the cows are going to have increased energy requirements because they're going to have to fight the mud. All right, they're probably going to make less trips to the bale ring or the feed bunk or whatever it is, wherever you're feeding them, so that their intake is probably going to go down somewhat. And they're probably going to be wet because they're laying down in wet, muddy conditions. And then when you get a cold snap, now I've got higher maintenance requirements because the animal's fur or hair is not insulating them as well as it should when it's dry.
Yeah, they don't get as cold as we do. They've got that thick hair coat, but once that hair coat gets wet, they can get really cold. So great that they have some increased requirements, which may cost me keeping them in the pen. So up to 8 points for Philip. Bob, I'm going to go to you, and I'm going to say not nutrition, but health. What are the health impacts?
All right, so there are health impacts to the cows, but my biggest concern is mud and young calves. And that's why I'm willing to keep the cows confined where they have to fight the mud, because once we start having cows, it's kind of I'm going to be more insistent that we get them out of there, because calf health is really compromised by mud, and so I'm willing to make the cows deal with the mud just so that then my grass traps or hay fields or something is available once we start having babies, because I don't want them around the mud.
Okay, excellent point. So brings you up to 8 points as well. So for our final topic here, so you guys both mentioned, having your pen in the right area is critical. Give me one or two characteristics of the right area, Philip.
On top of the hill, not the bottom.
Okay.
I want the slope to let the rain and water drain off quickly and not let it soak in.
Okay, Bob?
Absolutely. And I like, sometimes the best place for a lot is the worst place for pasture. So rocky soil, steeper slope, south-facing slope. Those are the types of things I'm looking for a place to put cows.
Excellent. I'm going to give that one to Bob because he not only had a slope, but he was directional. He's going to catch the sun in the wintertime. So nice job, Bob. Bob ends up with 9, Philip with 8. Appreciate you guys joining. And if you have any other questions for us, you can send us an email at bci@ksu.edu.